Hi folks, my name is Adam and I like to make tiny nerdy things, and given that it's the last Friday of Poketober, it's only fair that I make an extra spooky Pokemon. But life's not fair, so instead I made a Feraligatr. However, life can suck it, so here's some magic to assuage some of the pain of existence. Anyway, with a little magic, I've got a clay Rupert's drop that will be perfect for my Feraligatr body, and all I need to do is fatten it up a little bit and bulk it out until I've got a roughly shaped Feraligatr shape. The Feraligatr is a bit of a funny character to begin with, since he starts out as a crocodile, then morphs into a slightly chubbier crocodile, before reaching his final form of an alligator. Now I feel like the Pokemon people were trying to say something about where they stand on the crocodile v alligator debate, but I happen to think that both versions of the lazy murder lizard are excellent, and Feraligatr's mixed heritage means that I can get away with mixing my favorite parts from each. For instance, alligators have a flatter, more snub-nosed snout, while crocodiles tend to have a more pronounced set of teeth with the bottom row visible while the mouth is closed. I mean, there's probably a lot of other things I've done that are specific to one or the other, but to be entirely honest, I didn't try very hard to keep this one scientifically accurate, and this explanation is my preamble to keep you zoology nerds off my back. Otherwise, at this point, I've left his body mostly an amorphous blob, but I've started adding at least the rudimentary details to his head. I like to add the facial details at this point so that I can inadvertently smash or drop the model later, destroying all the details that I'm painstakingly adding now. I often get comments asking where I get the teeth, toes, and talons that I use for my sculptures. Well, this is where I get them. They're all homemade little wormy dealies that get rolled into little stabby dealies then tossed in the oven. I don't usually show this process since I tend to make up a whole batch in one go so that I have extra for future projects. This time I didn't have the size I needed, so I mixed up a batch of top tier gator teeth that I can then jam all up in Feraligatr's mouth. Okay, we're 2 minutes into this video, and I'm already tired of saying Feraligatr, so from now on, I'm just gonna call him Steve. Now, with Steve's teeth in place, I can use a couple different sharp-edged clay shapers to cut the cracks and scales and scars into his face and along his neck. To make his scaly armored alligator backplates, I'll attach a set of 4 long wormy dealies from the tip of his neck rolls and run them all the way down his spine to the tip of his tail. Then I can smooth them onto his body before using the flat edge of my sculpting tool to cut some lines across his back. And with the initial lines marked out, I can come back with some softer edged clay shapers and a ball stylus to smooth the rougher cuts and create a more natural separation between the plates. Finally, I'll add some cuts and marks on the surface before getting to work fattening up his belly. Now, Steve's very body positive and wears his belly with pride, so I'll make sure to thicken up his midsection, which should help balance his otherwise enormous head. To create his scaly belly plates, I'll cut a whole bunch of lines running across his body before cutting some less even lines running perpendicular to the first set. I don't want his scales to look too uniform, so I'm going to try and cut varying sizes as I work my way down to his tail. Then I can round out the edges to blend them together a bit better before using the texture roller to add some bumps between the belly and the back. Now, I made this particular roller in my T-Rex with flamethrowers video, so go watch that one after this one if you want to see how I did it. Or, just go watch it anyways, because it's a T-Rex with flamethrowers. Otherwise, I'll mark up the bumps a bit to make it look a little more scaly before throwing the whole thing in the oven to bake so that I can get started making some legs. Now, Steve's not going to be sporting the weight of his body for long, but he is going to need to be standing up long enough for the resin to set, so I figured I ought to err on the side of caution and make him a set of aluminium bones to give his legs a little bit more stability. A couple holes drilled into his belly will house the bones, and I can mount him on a little block and get started bulking up his legs. To make Steve's feet, I went with the alligator accurate 4 toes rather than the typical 3 toes you see on Feraligatr. This was mostly because I forgot how many toes Feraligatr actually has, but I'll never admit to just straight up making a mistake, so instead let's just say that it was intentional based on alligator anatomy. Otherwise, it's just a case of pushing and prodding the clay around until they resemble webbed 4-toed T-Rex feet. Then I can poke some divots into the ends and jam some pre-baked stabby dealies in place. Then I can add some cheap and cheerful scales that should pass the good from across the room check, before using my texture roller to roll some textures onto the upper portion of the leg. To make Steve's arms, I'll take a ball of clay and roll it out into a slightly tapered tube, then I can pinch the tip to make his hand so I can cut some fingers out. Then I'll do the smoker's roll to separate the upper and lower arm, clean up the fingers a bit, add a thumb, give the hand a little bit of definition, then jam some little hand stabbers into the tips of his fingers. Using a pair of flat tweezers, I can bend the fingers at the knuckles, then I'll cut away a chunk of clay at the elbow so that I can give it a nice bend.
Nice.
Then a little more of that patent pending lazy man scale texture and I can stick him in place on Steve's body. It does kinda look like Steve's wearing crocodile skin elbow length gloves though, so I'll roll the smooth section of his arms with the bumpy roller to help blend it all in, before adding some strategically placed little wormy dealies around his arms and legs to act as the ever important saggy lizard folds. For some added details, I'll stick a bunch of alligator warts onto his arms, legs, and the side of his body. Finally, I wanted to give Feraligatr's original design at least a little nod, so I'm going to go ahead and give his upper arms a set of blocky armor plates. Now the final piece of the Steven puzzle is going to be adding his big, soon-to-be red dorsal fin. To do this, I'll start by rolling out some extra small, extra pointy wormy dealies, then baking them in the oven. These will be the spines of my fin, and to mount them on Steven, I'll drill some shallow holes down the center of his back, then attach my freshly baked spines with a little CA glue. The fins will be made of an extra flat sheet of clay that I'll stick to one side of the spines, then wrap over the top to stick to itself. Then I can cut away any of the excess and add the waves between the spines using some little ball styluses to add that wavy finny texture. Then it's just a case of repeating these steps for the rest of the fins and Steven is ready for his final bake. Once he's out of the oven, I'll take a moment to appreciate his monochromatic paint job before moving on to something a tad bit more colorful. I'm going to do the standard Feraligatr color scheme, starting with a light khaki underside, which I'll carry across his entire belly and up into his jaw. Now I know Feraligatr has a blue chest, but I didn't do that, so I guess let me know in the comments how I've ruined your childhood. Otherwise, his top will get a dark blue base coat, making sure to gently blend it into the khaki of his belly, since I don't want any particularly harsh lines between the two colors. Then I'll come back through with a lighter greenish blue to give it all a nice blended highlight. I'll then mask off the fins so that I can blast them with progressively lighter shades of red. With the broad strokes done, I'll crack out my paintbrush to add the finer details, starting with a dark red to highlight each of the fin spines, then I can give his eyes a black base coat, then an orange with a yellow wet blend, before finally adding the little black slits and a tiny white shiny dot. I'll then give his teeth a base coat of just barely off-white white before doing the same for his fingies and toes. Then once they've all dried, I'll come back and give them all a lick of umber wash. Last but not least, Steven is exceptionally dirty, so I'll give him a full body wash, starting with a dark blue wash on all the blue parts, followed by an umber wash for his khakis. The wash will pool on all the dark sections, adding some easy and effective recessed shading. And with Steven looking pretty darn sharp, it's time to make his little bit of land to stand on. I've measured out a little rectangle of cardboard so I can keep my base within the size I want for my resin mold later, and then I'll cover this with a layer of clay and roll it relatively flat. And once it's flat enough, then it's time to carefully and precisely texture my dirt. With my texture masterfully applied, I can flip it over and use the cardboard cutout to trim off the excess. I'll press Steve into place to make some imprints of his feet, press some rocks into the still soft clay, then toss it in the oven so I can cure it, before giving it all a dirty brown base coat, followed by a couple lighter brown dry brushes to give it a top quality frosted tip look. Once the paint's dried, I can glue the little rocks into place and add some super simple vegetation. The vegetation is actually the needles off a pine tree that I've left out to dry and work an absolute treat for these little seaweedy dealies. My original plan was to have Steve swimming amongst the mangroves, but for a few reasons I opted for a much simpler base. First, I didn't want to cover Steve up with too much debris. Second, adding too many natural ingredients like sticks and twigs increases the chances of resin failure. And third, and most important, I didn't actually have any sticks or twigs, and getting some would involve going outside, and I try to avoid doing that at all costs. Otherwise, once Steve's been glued in place, I can finally get on to making my mold. I pre-cut a bunch of acrylic sheets so that they make a perfect box around Steve's riverbed. And to ensure that I actually build the box to the correct dimensions, I'll trace the base onto the bottom sheet. To hold my walls in place, I'll use a couple machine blocks so that I know they're straight, then a couple dabs of CA glue should keep my frame from falling apart. Finally, to seal the cracks and make the frame a bit more robust, I'll run a thick bead of silicone caulking along all the edges. Otherwise, that's my frame finished, so it's time to make some water. Steve's clay base is slightly bowed in the center, so I'll pour a tiny amount of resin into the bottom and then gingerly lower him into place to try and force the air bubbles out. Otherwise, once he's settled, it's just a case of pouring everything in and hoping for the best. And a couple days later, my resin is set and looking pretty perfect, so I can pop off the frame. No, I'm always a little amazed when a resin pour doesn't go tits up, and this one is so perfectly crystal clear that I almost don't want to cover it with anything. However, I'm not one to leave well enough alone, so it's time to make some swamp water. To make my top coat of swamp water, I'll mix a bit of clear silicone with a decent amount of isopropyl alcohol and tint it with a bit of green and blue dye. Then I'll very carefully mix it all together, trying to avoid introducing too many bubbles. Finally, a bit of umber ink will take it from a lovely ocean blue to a less lovely swamp green, and I can pour it over the top of my resin, making sure to block the camera with my hand the whole time. The alcohol will thin the resin so it flows like winter boogers in a beard, but as it dries I can poke and prod it to give it a bit more definition. And to judge up the swamp water and to help our sneaky blue boy, I'll sprinkle the top with a variety of plant-like detritus. The silicone will act as both the top layer of swamp water as well as a glue to hold the bits of leaves and twigs and junk in place. Finally, as the silicone is setting, I'll pull some ripples and waves away from Steve's face and body so it looks like he's slowly swimming through the leaves. Otherwise, we're all finished here and on to the glamour shots. As always, a big ol' thank you to the wonderful patronizers over on Patreon, and a very special shout out to my newest patronizers: Michelle Kennedy, T. Greenway, Gage Rasmussen, Barrett, Jessica Knorr, Adam Zogmek, Brandon Heck, Rebecca Thomas, Anthony Cameron, Marty McSly, OS Dot Bones, Jeffrey Davis, Kyra13, Jack Bowman, Halo Tychus, Big Man Henke, Bellender Jones, Salem William Doubt, Anna R. Dunster, Das Punkel, Elizabeth Beach, Longstrike Design, Angel Berg. In Gen 1 Pokemon beat Blue the second time, don't go to Route 2, but instead return to Professor Oak, he'll give you 5 Pokeballs. And Josie Tucker. You are the stable, dirty swamp floor upon which this blue boy of the channel stands. Poketober's over now, so I guess no more Pokemon, or at least not until I feel like it in a couple of weeks or something. I don't know, I don't really have a plan. Anyways, we'll see you next time. Cheers.